Welcome back to Call Her Daring. I'm Kelly Daring. On today's episode, I am talking to Jennifer, who identifies as a regretful mother. She submitted her story to me a few months ago, and I read it on my Regretful Parents series on TikTok. In her message, she talks about how she was not prepared for what life would be like with kids. She laments that nothing in her life is her own, and despite loving her children fiercely, she says that motherhood has single-handedly stolen her life. Today, Jennifer and I talk about her experience as a mom, why she feels regret, and whether she would choose to have children if she could go back and do it all over again. If you're interested in listening to Jennifer's original message, you can find it on my personal TikTok page, that's at Kelly Daring, and it's part 4 in the Regretful Parents series. Jennifer, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I have been looking forward to this discussion since I read your message on TikTok on my Regretful Parents series. It is part 4 in the series, and I'm not sure, but I think that it is the most watched and the most liked out of the Regretful Parents series. It was absolutely beautifully written, so I am so excited to have this opportunity to have a deeper conversation with you rather than just reading a message. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me, especially because I write in my spare time for fun. So that I appreciate. And I also love my children so much. I also appreciate you sharing my story in particular because it's just really important, I think, for women to have a voice, even if it is an anonymous one, so that other women in similar situations don't have to feel so alone. So thank you.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. So to start, can you tell me how old you are, how many children you have, and their ages?
Yeah. So I am 37 years old. I have 5 children. I have 2 10-year-olds. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That you got your hands full there, that's for sure.
I sure do.
Can you tell me about how you became a mother and what your reasons were for having children?
Absolutely. So I was raised in a time where if you dated someone long enough, you married them and you had kids. That was just the next sequential steps. Even within the last, I would say, 15 years, there's so much more awareness about carefully choosing your partner, making sure that the person that you're dating, you're looking at through the lens of, could this be the father or mother of my children, and start looking at it in a way that's more intentional than just, oh, we're young and in love and we're going to get married. This is something I feel really strongly about because I got married when I was 25 years old, and I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I don't think that any 25-year-old has any business getting married. I think you have so much more life to live and so much more to do before that. So I got married when I was 25. It was the next logical step. I was proposed to. It was the most unromantic proposal in the history of proposals. And I say that because he just kind of bought a ring. I think they call it a shut-up ring because we were together for 8 years. Yeah. So I think it's called that because everybody's like, when are you getting married? When are you getting married? And I think he fell into that as much as I did with we got to get married now. And 3 weeks after my wedding, I found out I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And I had no idea it was twins at the time, obviously, but found out I was pregnant with twins. 3 weeks after my wedding, I, didn't know at that time it was twins because there was some time in between where you have to go to doctor's appointments and such. But so that's how I ended up married with kids on the way at 25.
So it clearly wasn't a planned pregnancy. And so,
no.
And so talking about the reasons why you had children isn't really relevant in this case because it just kind of happened. Is that correct?
Well, it did just kind of happen. And there's a couple of things, like, I never saw myself as a mom at all. When I was growing up, I would have a very visceral reaction when I would see moms in public. I thought they were super embarrassing. I always saw them as people who didn't take care of themselves, put themselves first. I didn't see them as people who had any hobbies or identity outside of children. And I never wanted to be that. I watched my own mom struggle with raising 3 kids, all very close in age, while my dad worked several jobs. And in that, I was like, nope, not for me. No, thank you.
Wow. So then
Yeah.
what were your thoughts when you did get pregnant? If that was kind of how you viewed motherhood before you got pregnant and then you're pregnant, what were your thoughts?
I took 10 pregnancy tests.
Oh, God.
So I think a little bit of denial mixed in with a little bit of grief. I initially was really disappointed to find out I was pregnant at 25 and a half years old. And then I had an ultrasound because I was so sick, and I saw little hearts beating, two of them. And it was like everything changed. I was suddenly so excited that I could not contain myself. And it
Oh,
was a very
wow.
weird switch. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It became so real in that moment. I was like, oh my God. Like,
So in that moment, did your view of mothers change? Because you had a
no,
kind of a negative view of mothers, and then you saw these heartbeats and you got really excited. So did your expectations change?
no.
Okay.
I fell into the, what I call the trap of thinking that I was going to be different. I was like, oh, this is going to be different. I'm going to be a young mom. I'm going to be a cool mom. I'm going to be the mom whose kids, blah, blah, blah. Insert whatever there. I fell into the trap of thinking that it would just be different for me. So I wasn't going to necessarily identify as a mom, but I was going to have kids.
Gotcha. Okay. Can you tell me when you started to experience feelings of regret?
Yes. It was during my pregnancy with my twins. I had realized that my partner at the time was not catching up to me as far as life changes go. The moment I saw those two little heartbeats on the screen, my wild days of partying and, being out all night, just living carefree the way that I had lived for all the time before that, were done. And I was, my whole body was taken over by little babies who needed the food they needed and the attention they needed, and they needed me to care for myself in a different way than I had before. Whereas, very unfortunately, it was not the same for him. He turned out to be a lot like, unfortunately, a lot of partners that we hear about and see, where dad's life didn't change an ounce. And I remember having these like feelings of being terrified, because I was like, I'm going to raise these twins alone. I'm going to raise these babies alone. And that was this thought, even though I had just gotten married. I was like, I'm going to be alone. I know I am.
So your feelings of regret at that point, before you even had the babies, were they more about your having to grow up and your loss of freedom and your loss of, being a kid? Were your feelings of regret more about that, or more about who you were having kids with and the fact that he wasn't keeping pace and like kind of stepping up to the job?
That is a really good question, because it's a mix of both. I actually had some jealousy toward him because nothing changed, but everybody's high-fiving him as if like he's doing any work. And my body's the one changing. I'm the one with morning sickness that was really all-day sickness. That was
Yeah.
me. He was the one who just got the good side of all of it, and so it was that mixed with the fact that I couldn't see him as a father, and that alarmed me,
Yeah.
because I started thinking, well, if I'm going to have kids, shouldn't I be giving them more? And then what kind of a mom am I if I myself am already mourning the loss of freedom and they haven't even been born yet?
Okay. So you sounds like you felt some guilt
A ton.
mixed in there as well, even before you gave birth.
A ton of guilt. And it didn't end there. It exists today, even.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
in every parent I have ever talked to or ever known, there is so much guilt. I think it's just a part of parenthood.
I think, yeah, once your kids are born, there's just this like guilt gene that implants itself, and that's that. Like, you're just, the
Yeah.
rest of your life now, you're going to feel it over even the smallest things. You wouldn't believe what you feel guilty for
Yep.
as a
And
mom. Like,
it's never
outrageous.
ending. It doesn't
Nope.
go away when they're 18. Yeah, it just stays.
It stays. Yep.
Did you tell anyone about your feelings of regret when you started to experience them? You
I
did?
did actually. Again, I fell into another trap, which I hate to sound so negative because I'm normally a very positive person, so I apologize. But I fell into this thought process where other women around me were going to support me, especially women who were also mothers. So I told my mom, and I told other women in my life, like friends of the family and peers who didn't yet have kids, thinking that my truth would be something that was shared, that they could look at and go, oh, yeah, me too, girl. Like, this is normal. I think that's something we all do. We all kind of seek out other people who might have a similar experience to us and hope that we're going to hear supportive words. I was faced with so much judgment that I stopped talking about it after my twins. And I had postpartum depression with my second child. I didn't tell anybody. I suffered that alone because of the very harsh words that were spoken to me by people that, I mean, I don't know if they're probably well-intended, well-meaning people who were just thinking, okay, you know, she needs to step out of this. She needs to be a mother. But I feel like that expectation is so narrow-minded because two things can be true at once. You could have feelings of guilt, regret, sadness, grief, and also be really prepared to do a good job at something like motherhood, for example. And I was met with a lot of, well, then you shouldn't have kids.
That's what people said to you?
Oh yeah, you shouldn't be having kids. It's like a little late now, but
well, yeah, it's too late. That's not helpful whatsoever. Gosh.
I know. I remember I sent an email to somebody and I had said to her, you know, I'm so sick. Like, I have such bad morning sickness. It's not just in the morning. It was all day. I had lost weight during that pregnancy, and I couldn't get nutrients in anything. And I said, I didn't know it would be like this. And they said, it is very insensitive of you to say that, knowing that other women can't get pregnant at all.
Oh, my God. So you need to stuff your own feelings down,
Yes.
ignore, invalidate your own experience because of these women. It's not even relevant. You're not talking to those women. If you were talking to a friend who like couldn't get pregnant, that might make sense. But that's so frustrating. So nobody would commiserate with you. Nobody was compassionate. Nobody understood. Nobody could talk to you as a friend to listen. That did not happen for you.
No, I was the only person in my friend group at the time who was going to have kids, and then stayed the only person in my friend group who had kids for a long time. And the older women that I was friends with who had children who were older would just kind of laugh it off and say things like, well, you shouldn't have them, or, oh, wait till they're teenagers. It's going to be so much worse than this. Or, oh, you think it's bad while you're pregnant? Wait till they're born and you don't sleep anymore. And again, I don't know if some of it was meant to be kind of funny. Like, I'm a big jokester, so, like, maybe. But at the time, with my hormones raging, it wasn't.
No.
It was just kind of disheartening. And I was like, oh, boy, I'm so alone in this, you know?
I was just going to ask about being alone and feeling lonely in those feelings. Is that how you felt? I can't imagine. So I think I personally would feel so alone and so lonely when nobody is willing to understand what I'm saying. Did you feel that way?
Absolutely, especially when my ex-mother-in-law, when I had told her how I had felt during pregnancy, how I was sick, and she would witness me throwing up. She said there must be something wrong with me mentally because her pregnancies, she felt the best she's ever felt in her life.
And that's the only possible experience that a woman could or should have.
It's the only acceptable one, Kelly.
Yes.
You should know that.
Wow.
Only positive ones. But you want to hear the crazy part? When I was growing up, I witnessed a lot of women in my family who had children who were miserable. And that's why I didn't want to be a mom in the first place. And by miserable, I don't mean they were like, you know, rude or like abusive toward anyone, but they were miserable. They would stand in the kitchen at family parties and complain about their husbands and how rotten their kids were and how nobody listens to them. So it was this odd thing where I'm existing in this place of hearing, well, you shouldn't feel this way. But I had heard it myself as a child that they also felt that way. So I was just looking to be in that club for a few minutes, and I didn't make it in apparently because nobody ever, So that was the interesting piece of that, was it was like this denial. So
yeah. You were doing the wrong kind of you were doing the wrong thing, apparently. That's not what they wanted to hear.
No. They wanted me to wait till my kids were in their teens and complain then about how my pregnancy was 15 years ago, I guess.
That's
I don't
when
know.
It's acceptable, apparently, yes.
Apparently, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so in your message that I read on TikTok, you talk a lot about the realities of motherhood, what motherhood is like for you. Can you detail some of that for me here?
Absolutely. So, I want to kind of give a disclaimer that I was married before to somebody who was not a great partner. Motherhood back then looks a lot different than it does now because I'm with someone who's very supportive and involved. So I will say that back then it was very much like a single married person
Okay.
in the sense that I had the load of everything, the emotional, the physical, bringing everybody everywhere. Even if we went to like a family party or something, I was with the kids while they were doing what they needed to do. Nowadays, it's more the day looks like this. I don't choose when I wake up. I am woken up. And I am woken up by a variety of noises. It's either a cry from the little one, like I need to get out of my bed. Is that reasonable? Right? All of this is reasonable. I want to disclaim that.
Yep. Yep.
There's a loud banging noise because someone's fallen out of bed. It is an argument in the kitchen because my older kids are arguing over what's going to happen or whose water bottle this is. I don't wake myself up. And by the way, I also don't sleep through the night either. That's a myth. People who think that when your newborn starts to sleep through the night, you do, that's a big fat lie. That doesn't happen. You still get up and check on them to make sure they're still alive all night.
Yeah.
Like, it just instinctual. And if you're not the one waking yourself up, again, you're woken up because somebody had an event in the middle of the night. It just happens. So typical day starts off sleep deprived, waking up at an ungodly hour. I don't think I've slept past, oh my gosh, like 6 a.m. on the days when my partner's working, because on the weekends I sleep till like 9. He's very amazing about, I've got it, because he knows I'm up all night. So very, very good. But I get up in the morning, I make people's breakfast, I change diapers, I find pants or shirts or socks or underwear, whatever's missing from somebody's wardrobe. The mental list that I have of, okay, this person has field day, they need a yellow shirt. Did we get it's right here. Okay, great. This person actually has to have lunch for this class today, so we can't do peanut butter. We have to do, something that's peanut free. This person has a doctor's appointment at 12, so I have to pick them up early from school. Then I'm going to drop them back off because they have this after school. And it's that all going on in my head as I'm just doing this. And I haven't even had coffee yet at this point. If I can sneak a coffee, it's usually while they're eating breakfast. I can kind of sneak away, and I have a little porch I like to sit on and enjoy kind of like the morning a little bit. I sit down. The minute I sit down, somebody comes outside to join me because they cannot be away from me for 5 seconds. And I understand that they are little and they love me. It means I'm doing a good job that they're so attached. However, if I'm being 100% honest, I would like 10 minutes by myself. That would be beautiful. I did try getting up at 4:30 in the morning at one point because I heard some people saying, oh, just get up earlier. It doesn't matter. There's still people up in my house. There's so many kids. Somebody's up. Yeah. So, after everybody's off to school, and going back to the mom guilt thing, there are days when I physically just cannot drive them to school because I have an early meeting or something going on. And there's been so many times where I just give in and do it because I will feel so bad. I have to battle. Do I be late for this meeting, right? And have somebody say to me, okay, we'll have to rearrange. Or do I spend the rest of the day feeling guilty that, this child wanted me to bring them to school, and I 9 times out of 10 will choose putting somebody else out, which sounds so selfish, but at the same time, like, the guilt that I have to live with sometimes when I have to tell them no is outrageous because it's something small. Like,
Yeah.
I can't bring you to school. But we do school. Then we get, I have my work day. I work from home, so my work day happens, but I have little ones with me at home as well at the same time. So it's making sure that the night before I've set up activities for them. It's working in a spot where I can still be present for them at the same time as doing a full-time job. If I have a meeting, I have to plan for that meeting like hours in advance, make sure that, it's during the baby's nap time, that my 5-year-old has something to do that's going to keep her entertained, quiet, and also like not feeling as if I'm neglecting her, After the workday is done and, the whole day with the little ones at home is coming to an end. Kids get off the bus. They come in, they need a snack. As I'm working, I have one sit with me at a time and tell me a little synopsis of their day, just so that they know they have that connection. One of my children has a really hard time in school, so I started doing that specifically because I noticed that he was needing that in order to have a good night afterwards. So we do that. And then I start dinner at the same time. My partner usually gets home anywhere between 5 and 7. So like there's somewhere I know that relief is coming, help is coming. As soon as he gets home, if my workday is coming to a close, we kind of all take a family time. But in the meantime, I need you to know that it's not as cut and dry between those working hours as one might think. There's calls from school. There's making appointments for the kids that need to be made. There's making purchases like groceries, special things for something. Everyone always has something coming up, probably just because of the sheer number of children I have. There's planning for birthday parties for friends and all of that. All of that is my job. So I don't have any space left a lot of the time to think about much else or to participate in much else, because by the time people are in bed and sleeping, I'm wiped out. I am just exhausted, and it's like decompressing from that. You're still battling your own thoughts, like of, did I do enough? Did I make enough of a connection with this child today? Did I make sure that this person felt seen? Or I'll remember maybe an incident between two of the kids where I stepped in and was just like not parenting to like my 100% fullest, more of a, okay, you know what, sounds like you both made each other upset, we're just going to forget it and we're going to move on. Did I make someone feel like they weren't seen or not heard? It's constant. So it's that mental and emotional load that just makes everything else 10 times more exhausting that you have to do.
Call Her Daring is sponsored by Bagnet Company. I founded Bagnet Company in 2015, and since then I've made it my mission to create useful accessories that not only make your life easier, they add a little sparkle to your everyday. The best pleasures in life are the little things that you love using because they bring a smile to your face and serve a purpose. That's why Bagnet Company is a no-brainer for women who know they deserve to have it all. Easier, better, more beautiful. It's not a tagline, it's a life mantra. I want to talk about your message to me. You said a couple of things that I want to hear your thoughts on. You say in your original message to me, you say that nothing in your life is your own and that motherhood has single-handedly stolen your life. Can you tell me exactly what you meant by that?
So when I talk about what my life was like before I had kids, I could wake up, go grab a coffee, go to the gym, go whatever. The day was mine. If I wanted to spend the last $30, $40 I had for that week on a new makeup brush or something, the world was my oyster. I had all the things I wanted to do, I could do. I also didn't have nearly as much worry as I have now because I am responsible for 5 people's lives who are totally dependent on me. I worry all day. Mm-hmm. So even when I'm not home or by myself at the house for a little bit, even on the odd chance that my partner and I get out or get away for a night or something, it's always in the back of my mind. Those moments are less enjoyable because I know that the kids need me. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like...
It does.
One of my children is neurodivergent, and they have quite a bit of meltdowns throughout the day. When I'm at a concert, I can't fully be present at the concert thinking, oh boy, is, whoever's watching him, are they doing the tactics that we do to soothe the meltdown? And granted, we only let grandparents watch the kids, so they do know, but they don't do it like I do it. That sounds terrible, but it's not untrue, So thank you for understanding what I meant by that. But it's like only I can soothe that child the way that they need. I
Yeah.
can't be fully present at a concert knowing that could be a thing that's happening. And that's only a very small example.
You say your thoughts are not your own. And I
Mm-hmm.
think so that's what you're describing now is that now your thoughts go to your children almost all the time, even when you're out at a concert, even when you're out enjoying an evening with friends. It doesn't matter. You at least a part of your brain is with your children at all times. You no longer have like full access or ownership
Yeah.
or autonomy over your thoughts.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you talk about like when I talked about like how motherhood has stolen my life entirely, it has because I don't make choices for myself anymore based off of just me. I make the choices based off of what's in the best interest of my children.
Mm-hmm.
I make the choices based off first and foremost what is going to best suit their needs. Is this a safe decision, right? Obviously, above all. Is this something that's going to benefit them? Is this something that's going to make their life better? Does this work with their sports schedule? Does this work with their doctor's appointments that they need to go to? Does it work for them over anything else? I have two girlfriends who have been begging me to go to their beach house with them for a weekend, and they both don't have children, and they're so good to mine, they love mine, but that isn't going to happen because I know if I go, I'm going to feel guilty that I'm not home, and it's not going to be enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, you know, the kids will be fine with like my partner if he was the one with them, but like that's not the point. It's so hard to describe the point. I would be still getting phone calls from them. You know, my older kids have phones. Like I would still be worrying. The worry doesn't go just because I displaced myself. So you're absolutely right. I don't have autonomy over my thoughts anymore. It's shared. It's theirs.
So yeah, you could force yourself to physically go to the beach house for the weekend, but you're not going to be mentally present and you're not going to enjoy it the way that you should or the way that you could because your mind is going to be with your kids.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think that'll get a little easier as they become more independent, which is why I think, because I know that the worry never goes away, but it's also why I think that the season that I'm in right now, because I do call it the season of motherhood, everything goes to them in this season. They're little. They need me. They're going to want to be around me a lot less in 5 years. And I realize that. I'm happy for them for that because they need the independence. They absolutely need it. But that also gives me the opportunity 5, 10, 15 years from now to do those things, hopefully guilt-free.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Yeah. Right.
What do you think are the benefits or the positives of motherhood in your experience?
Motherhood quite literally made me a better person. And I don't know if that's a fair thing to say. And I don't know. But it did. I am inherently a very selfish person. And I always thought it was funny that as a teenager and a young adult, people were like, oh, you're so selfish. You're supposed to be. So any teens and young adults listening, you're supposed to be selfish. Like, it's your time. But I mean, to a point where I very rarely thought outside of myself until I became pregnant. And realized, oh boy, like, I gotta walk every day to make sure I'm healthy enough for childbirth. I have to eat better so that, what little food I can keep down, they get nutrients from. And to be honest with you, as they got older, and I have, children that are not neurotypical, I have one child that is terminally ill. I will tell you that what it looks like now is a lot of me figuring out my triggers, figuring out my own, I guess, issues. I don't love that word, but my own issues, my own stuff, so that I can be the support, the mentor, and the guide that they need. So without them, I may have never gotten there. Who knows? Maybe. But I attribute all of that to them. I wanted to be better because they deserve the best.
That's wonderful. Did you say you have a terminally ill child?
I do.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, I don't think I mentioned that. I do. Yeah, he was born with a congenital heart defect that's very rare. It's called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. and there's no cure. He has had 2 open heart surgeries. He'll have a third coming up in the next 2 years, and then after that he will need a heart transplant.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, not right away, but eventually. So that is a challenge for us as well, but also another reason for us to focus on the kids as they're little, be there to support them. The kids are all aware of his medical condition. It's been something that I think we've coped with really well as a family. And he's just, looking at him, you would never know. He's the most happy child in the world, but
Aw.
it's one of those things that absolutely adds a little bit to that mental load and that worry that, yeah.
I can't imagine. Yes, I'm sure that adds a tremendous amount to that mental load.
It does. But he is one of the reasons why I decided to go to therapy and just be a better person in general. Because, again, the older kids, they love him so much. They're going to, eventually have to cope with another hospitalization for him. I need to have myself together to be able to support them. And they deserve that. They all do. So, yeah.
What aspects of your pre-children life do you miss the most? And I think I might know the answer to this based on our conversation so far, but I wanted to ask regardless.
Yeah, that's okay. I miss not worrying all the time. I feel like I used to be a lot more fun. I'm fun now, but in a different way. I was the person in my friend group where it was like, oh my God, Jennifer, like, we can't tonight or whatever. I never wanted the party to end. I was clubbing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every week, tall high heels. And I don't know that it's necessarily those experiences that I miss, because there comes a time when you don't have those anymore.
Absolutely. Yes.
I don't know that I would want to be like, I don't know.
No, you would have grown out of that regardless.
Yeah, eventually.
But I think it's what it represents.
It is what it represents, because it was like I had space for that. Where I could be like, oh my God, we're going to do these fun things. Now with the constant worry and just the weight of the responsibility, let's be honest. Yeah. I don't know that anybody is just predispositioned for this much responsibility, because it is a lot. Like, you are responsible not only for their physical well-being and safety on a day-to-day basis, you're responsible for their mental health. Yeah. And how they view themselves. I read once, like, the way you talk to your children is the voice they're going to hear inside their head as they grow. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I can't at all, like, sound, even if I'm frustrated, I can't, I have to be aware of how I even speak.
All the time.
Because I don't want them to grow up ever. They deserve so much better than that. And just because I had a moment where I lost my cool, I don't want them to bear the brunt of that at all. So it's just those things that I miss. That not being so responsible and worrisome all the time.
Why did you want to come on the podcast and tell your story?
I think it is so important that women of all experiences start talking more and sharing more, because women are the most powerful creatures on the entire planet, and no matter what lifestyle we choose, if we could all find a way to band together and understand one another, we would literally be unstoppable. I truly believe that.
It's so true.
Yeah, it is. I never want another woman to be pregnant with someone that, by someone rather, that they're unsure about, go for help, and everybody around them be like, what's your problem?
Yeah.
Right? I want them to be able to know that somebody else has been through it and is on the other side of that part and has a life that's way better than they could have ever imagined. But at the same time, recognizes that there isn't enough support, especially, for moms who are struggling, whether it's a single mother, a mother who's in a domestic violence situation, a mother who's going through mental illness or postpartum depression, another kind of struggle. It's just a lot of judgment that comes out. And I am a cycle breaker, and I want to break that cycle of judgment. So if my voice can help that even a little bit, I'm down.
Awesome. I love that. And I think these huge amounts of women that are now on TikTok listening, first of all, there's so many telling their stories, and there's so many more listening to these stories. And I think it is building this this allyship or yeah, alliance between women
Yeah,
worldwide, certainly nationwide, to where we will be so much more powerful because we are sharing our experiences and we are commiserating, and we all can see. We used to think there's so many things we've been told, like just pick a better partner. You got a bad picker, or
right.
just put up with this shit, or the lies we're told about motherhood. That we're all starting to talk on TikTok, and we're starting to realize, like, no, this isn't a me problem. This is a world problem. This is a
That is right.
patriarchal problem,
Yep.
and we can come together and we can start to deal with this problem now that we no longer believe that it's us.
That's right. Amen to all of the above, by the way. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said this is a patriarchal problem. It really is. Because if someone is not enjoying every ounce of motherhood, they're a terrible person. Or God
Yes.
forbid, someone's child free by choice, then they're horribly selfish people, which is
Yes.
so not. Like, are we still saying that? It's like 2024. Are we still saying that? Like, come
We are still
on.
saying it's
No,
horrible. It's so off
not the
base.
vibe. Yeah,
No.
it is so off base. It's so off base and out of touch with reality. Absolutely.
Yes, it is. I think your answer leads perfectly into this next question, which is, what do you hope people will understand about being a regretful mother?
I hope that what people understand is that for many of us, we don't regret our children. We regret the experience that we had or the experience that we gave them or both. I regret nothing about who my 5 children are. They are some of the biggest joys I ever have day to day. They're the reason that I laugh most of the time when I want to cry. They are the reason that I made myself a better person, chose better, saved money, did things I never thought I was going to do, like go back to college. They are all to credit for that, all of it. I hope that people understand truly that it really is not the kids that are regretted. And it isn't. Once they're here, think of how backwards that would be to now regret them and just make life harder, right? Even from a logical standpoint, it doesn't make sense. Like, I've had them. I've had them. I love them. I care for them. And I don't regret any part of my day. I do regret the fact that I didn't wait longer. I should have been more financially stable when I had them. I should have had my college degree when I had them. I should have gone to therapy before I even remotely chose a life partner. I should have done all of those things. And that immediately trickles down to the kids. Therefore, I'm a regretful mother. They deserved better than that. And they didn't ask to be here. So, like, that's kind of on me. It's like those are the things that I regret the most. It's nothing to do with them. And what's interesting is that I did read a lot of the comments on that video. And, some people, and fair enough, right? Fair enough question. Why did you have so many kids if the first, wouldn't she have known this? The answer is it wasn't the kids that made me regretful. It was that increasingly I became a better mother because there was more experience. They had my first, and then, obviously, like, I want another one because I do love my children. I loved the experience of raising them, but it wasn't like, and again, I did my healing gradually over time. So as I became a better person, I wanted the opportunity to be a mother to those people. And frankly, with every child I had, I feel like I genuinely got better as a person. And I just started seeing life in a more, I don't know, diverse and sort of even more positive way. It just, it wasn't the kids, which is why I had more.
In an earlier conversation with you, you said something that stuck with me. And what you said was, after I had one, I was already a mother. So it didn't matter how many I had after that, which I thought was really interesting. Can you explain what you meant by that exactly?
Yes, because I think what people do sometimes, and this is not even a flaw because we all do it, is they look at a circumstance and they try to relate to it, so they put their own stuff on it. rather than just trying to understand what the person's saying. Again, two things can be true at one time. You can be totally overwhelmed, but at the same time, you're like, I'm overwhelmed, but it's not going away. Like I had kids already. If you have one child, you're a mother. If you have 10 children, you're a mother. All of what I described earlier about the day, what it looks like, it's not going to change much. The number of people you're doing those things for might change, but it's not going to alleviate your stress whatsoever at all to have less kids based off the fact that, and I say that really carefully because, yes, financially, if you can't do it, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it either. But I would say that, in my experience, I was able to have that many children, still work, still do the things I needed to do, still grow as a person. Yes, it was hard, but I already had one, or rather two. So maybe it's because I started with multiples that to me, I was just, maybe that's me from my own lens, but when you have one, I'm a firm believer. Women say to me all the time, oh my God, I only have two. I could never. I'm like, our experience is the same because it's all perspective. One thing that we need to do differently is stop comparing and saying, oh, I shouldn't feel bad because I only have two kids and this person has five, so therefore they have it harder. That's so not even remotely, could not even be less true. Like, the number of children you have doesn't equate to harder. Mm-hmm. Or, experience is experience, perspective is perspective. So, yeah, I was already a mom with the other two, so it wasn't like anything was going to change that much by not having more. Would they have grown up faster? I would have had less diapers to change. Yep, but the worry still exists.
Yeah. Yep, the mental load's still there.
Absolutely.
When your kids are adults, what will you tell them? Like, what advice will you give them about becoming a parent when they are old enough to become a parent? Are you going to protect them by silencing any regret you feel, or will you protect them by letting them know?
Oh, God. So this is my favorite question because even now, my kids are aware of how hard parenting is. And it's not because I put my adult stuff on them. It's because they watched me as a single mother for a couple years. They watched me with a terminally ill child. And just by simple means of observation and realizing that we have to stop infantilizing our children, the older they get, they notice more. And they've asked some very thoughtful questions about the process. Even my 5-year-old has looked at me during a day where I am running around doing all of the things and haven't even paused and will say, wow, being a mama is hard, huh? And it's not even because I'm complaining. I'm not even saying anything. I might even be listening to a podcast while I'm doing it. But the recognition of it is there because they notice. They watch everything we do. It's pretty cool on one side of it because my daughters literally think they can do anything because they've seen their mom do it, and I love that for them. I really do. My older daughter has told me that a million times. So that's very positive, but it really is one of those things where, protecting them is harmful because, at least in my opinion, if another person says it's not, that that's their own, but protecting them is harmful because then they end up in a spot where they're looking at it through rose-colored glasses versus what it really is. So much of motherhood is you are the hub. You are the lightning rod, okay? And they know that just based off of what they've seen. They know that based off of questions they've asked, and I've given them honest answers. They also know our favorite conversation is you all have no business getting married when you're 25. And my older kids find that to be quite funny. And you can see how they differ from their peers in a way that they're not into the whole, like, I need a boyfriend, I need a girlfriend thing. Whereas a lot of their peers are starting to do that. And I love that for them, because when they ask me at younger ages, like, oh, like, what's a boyfriend, what's a girlfriend? And we have these, like, age-appropriate conversations about what it means. I always reminded them from a young age, nope, get your traveling, your career, get your money, get your degree, or whatever you want to pursue. And then, like, in your 30s, then you can start thinking about all that because you don't need to.
Exactly.
Life is, you don't need to. So, protect them? Absolutely not, because there's nothing to protect them from. That would just be dishonest to my experience. It would make them feel lonely if, God forbid, they have an experience. I would rather they have all the information and too much information than go into it the same way I did.
I would feel the same. And I think once they're adults, you can have a tactful, loving, compassionate conversation where you share your experience, but you don't have to say, I regret becoming a mother. I regret having
Oh,
children.
yeah.
Like that doesn't need to be
Right.
said, and that might not even be
No.
true. But you can say being a mother is really fucking hard, and you need to know that.
It's so true because even the kids now, like I said, they'll notice when I'm having, and I try so hard to be neutral emotionally when I'm having a hard day because they don't need that. They're little. But they still notice if, like, and it's strange. I don't know if it's that, like, mother-child connection, but, like, they'll just be extra livey that day, or they'll be like, I don't know. But I
Yeah.
agree with you. I look forward to those conversations with them when they're older because we have very open and honest conversations now. I think the best thing you can do for your children is have open, age appropriate, honest conversations with them. Really, because
Agreed.
it's just going to benefit them no matter what the topic is. But I absolutely can have a conversation with them when they're, thinking about getting pregnant or, whatever their life ends up being, and say, look, this is hard. This is not for the faint of heart. Here's some things to consider that you're not going to read online or maybe see in a book somewhere, because the weight gain, the sleepless nights, that's the least of your worries. There's so much more to it. Yeah. And I want them to know that.
I couldn't agree more. I would do the same if I were in your position. I have one more question that I want to ask you, and I wasn't planning on asking you, but because you are going to remain anonymous, I am going to ask it. But you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. If you could go back and do it again, would you have kids?
I'm gonna get emotional. Undoubtedly, I would. But I would be different. I would be in a position. I'm sorry. I would be in a position where they wouldn't have to grow up in a broken home, where they always got the best of me. I would do it all over again, but I would do better. So that when I tell them later in life how hard it is in the decisions, that they don't necessarily have to look back and maybe feel some shame towards what they then realized their mom put up with, went through, participated in. I absolutely would have them again. The best surprise of my life was falling in love with each of them when they were born, because I didn't expect it.
That's so wonderful.
Thank you. Sorry about all the tears. Wow, that one hit me.
No, I'm sorry. I thank you for your honesty, and no, I welcome the emotion. I know this is a really emotional topic, and I appreciate you answering the question.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. It was a really good question. Yeah, if I absolutely would go back and do it again, even if it meant the same things, because I can't picture my life without them. Now that I have them, it feels empty. Trust me, since I am anonymous and I will tell you, on hard days, like single mom hard days, I remember just complaining to myself and being by myself, like after they all went to bed, and being like, oh my God, like, how am I going to do this? And I would think of I would stop and I would think of what life would be without them, and I would just burst into tears and sob because I just couldn't picture it. It felt so empty to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even though it was like the worst time of my life, it was still, I have to get up and be for them, and I'm so glad that I have them. So I just hope someday they know that whatever I've caused for them, trauma-wise, because of the person that I couldn't be, that it wasn't their fault, and that I did wish that I could have done better.
I'm sure they will know that. I know just by talking to you for an hour that you are a wonderful mother and that you love your
Thank
children
you.
very much.
Oh my
And
God, I'm
I have
obsessed with
no
them.
doubt that they will know.
Thank
They
you.
will know that.
I appreciate that. I hope so.
I have really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story and helping to inform and educate women about the whole truth of motherhood. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate you. I love the work you're doing. I think I've messaged you this a million times. It is very important work. And what you said about, creating sort of a community and an allyship through the work you're doing, that's the part of it I love the most because, I know lots of women who are child free by choice. I know lots of women that are, in marriages that they're unhappy with, or women that just never got married. And I am lucky that I have a friend group where there's like a little bit of all of that in it. But when I started realizing there's a lot of division between people who come from those different experiences, I see what you're doing as sort of a unifying thing for all women, and I love that. So thank you. I appreciate you, and I really am grateful I got to share my story. Very, very grateful.
Yes, thank you again. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Call Her Daring podcast. You can find me and Call Her Daring on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Follow for even more content and conversations about women being radically honest about the female experience. Please join me here every week for a new episode of Call Her Daring, and let's continue the powerful tradition of storytelling with the goal of informing and educating us all, so that we may step into our truest selves and realize our full potential as powerful women.